Welcome to WorldCanvass. I'm Joan Kjaer. It's nice to have you with us tonight. This program is the fourth program in a four-part series on sustainability called The Social Impact of Sustainability. Very happy to have you with us. And I'd like to introduce the guests just next to me here. We're going to have a lot of fun in this half hour, I think. Marcelo Mena-Carrasco is in the middle here. He's a civil and environmental engineer who earned his master's and PhD degrees here at the University of Iowa and was named the 2013 International Impact Award winner at the University of Iowa, and great pleasure to have you here. Marcelo is a professor, sort of a policy consultant, and he's also the director of a large sustainability center at a university in Chile. Jaime Mena is next to me here. Marcelo's father, also a graduate of the University of Iowa. He earned his PhD in mathematics here some years ago, and he is a professor at a mathematics institute at Pontificia Universidad Católica de Valparaíso, Chile? Sí, okay. And I understand he's the author of calculus textbooks that have caused many students to consider flinging themselves out of the windows. And Phil Kutzko is at the end here. Professor Kutzko is a professor at our University of Iowa Department of Mathematics. He has long been an advocate of greater inclusiveness in higher education, and Dr. Kutzko received the 2009 Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Mentoring presented by President Obama at the White House. And a side note, a very important note, Dr. Kutzko and his colleagues in the math department had received the same award in 2005 for their very determined efforts to recruit students from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds into graduate programs here at the UI. So, Phil, very great to have you here. So, we're going to talk a little bit about what an international education means to individuals and to an institution, and then to sort of the sense of community we all have living as members of a common planet. Marcelo, you came here after living here as a younger person when your father was getting his degree, your uncle studied here. I know you have a sister who lives in Iowa. What has it meant to you to be connected to Iowa in this way?
It was something that I always wanted to come back to. I didn't apply to any other school except at the University of Iowa. It was, I remember for many years after returning to Chile, I would have dreams about the Iowa City Public Library. And because it's just such an amazing place, right? And of course I lived, and some people think maybe it's not a very sane thing to do, but I actually lived in the same apartments that I grew up with my parents, and actually drove yesterday through the old playground, where I used to play. Even though I don't see myself, when I saw the playground, I didn't really notice that it was my playground too, but it was my kids' playground, right? So anyway, the University of Iowa has been super important to us because it really gave us an opportunity to learn. I mean, to rise above, my dad really, it was a big level of rising. He was a PhD, right, in Chile, in a time where there weren't many PhDs. And he really influenced most of my family. So the number of PhD students or PhDs at my family rose a lot. And because we saw that all of a sudden this really nice guy, he could be a PhD. And so right now I have another cousin of mine getting his PhD at Columbia. Another cousin is a professor at Catholic University, and maybe he won't admit it, but the reason why he is a professor today is because of my dad and the opportunity that he took from the University of Iowa at the moment that he took. So.
Well, that leads us back to you, Professor Mena. How was it that you came here to the University of Iowa? What brought you here?
Well, actually, I was here many years ago. I have many friends here, so it's hard for me to speak English now. No. Well, the main thing is when you have a study outside your country, you open your mind. You met different things. You met people thinking the other way. Another country, another life. And the thing is, you change. And when you go back to your country, you try to copy the good way, the things you do, you saw in USA. Was After that, I tried to do everything in my country to help the people, to help my students, to change the life. And that was the main change I have in coming here. Marcelo is a wonderful resort, but we get a lot of help here, for example. A lot of help. Teach him, and I could study very well because the people here is very warm. Was nice to stay here, and I can study and can finish my PhDs because Iowa City is a special city.
Iowa City is a special city.
Yes.
That's very nice.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably my favorite city by far. And then, for example, we were able to keep our Catholic traditions because we had a scholarship at the Iowa City Community Grade School at the moment. It's very unfortunate. A lot of these things don't exist anymore, in the sense that it was torn down maybe I don't know how many years ago. But I could still walk to see where it was, and of course I had Sister Agnes teach me how to speak English at the moment, and that's a great opportunity and great thanks to the community that actually gave us a scholarship to be able to continue our Catholic traditions, and so that really made a difference for my sister. So she's a professor at Central College. My brother, who works in Boston right now, and my brother actually shows like the real meritocratic opportunities that you could take in the U.S. educational system. So my brother was sort of a problem child in a way when he was a little boy, and so then all of a sudden he really didn't have a good path in Chile, right? But he comes here and he starts working, and then he goes to Kirkwood Community College, right? But then you could spring from Kirkwood to the University of Iowa and get your full degree. That's a really great thing, a very unique thing, because that doesn't happen everywhere in the world. Now then he gets his master's at Wash U, social work in public health. And we didn't see that was going to be an opportunity, but it was a very good way that you could take the steps that you want to take at the moment you want to take them, and it's a very forgiving system, in the sense that you could take that opportunity, but if you don't, it's not going to be the end of the world. So in the end, then Fernando is also a very important example of how this educational system could really help you thrive if you take these chances.
Yeah.
Actually, I try to do this in Chile now. Our university are quite close, and they are different universities now, but we are worried about, my university worried about to what he's doing now in here. The people need to give one step first and then the other step. Yeah. So the problem is to give the hand, to pull him to go to high in the education, where it's clear if they know mathematics, they know language, and they know science, they can choose the very well. They can choose the way to solve their life. For instance, what he does is I think is very important for the people. You can choose if you know.
Yes.
If you don't know, you just do what everybody does.
Yes.
So learn and know is very important, and we have to clear that. And that is the same, for instance, the minorities is very important.
The Hawkeyes are rising. The Big Ten season has officially begun for the Iowa men's basketball team. The Hawkeyes will be heating things up on the court once again this Big Ten season, and you can help get Carver rocking.
Kjaer's got to break out and look out below. Contested, it's showtime.
For tickets, call 1-800-IA-HAWKS or visit HawkeyeSports.com.
You're going to have a 3D card.
Why are you taking it, Teja?
So the key thing here is that Show your Iowa pride, the Iowa Hawk Shop, where Iowa shops. The ultimate collection of Iowa Hawkeye merchandise, gifts, and apparel. Help support the University of Iowa. All proceeds benefit men's and women's athletic teams and student programs. The Iowa Hawk Shop, where Iowa shops. Show your Iowa pride. Call 1-800-HAWK-SHOP or visit www.hawkshop.com.
Well, yeah, that leads us to you, Phil. You've taught here for a long, long time, and you have long had an interest in expanding the kind of population that takes graduate credits and earns graduate degrees here in multiple areas. Tell us a little bit about why that was important to you.
Well, it was interesting enough. I mean, as an American, it's important to me because one of the things we learn when we travel to places like Chile or Mexico, or even in our own country to Puerto Rico, is that other places are not so divided and split up by ethnicity and pain from the past. So when you live in a country like ours, and as you've heard from my friend Jaime say and his son, it breaks your heart to think that with everything that we have, we're so apart still. And so our goal at the department, all of us feel that way, is to see if we can't mirror American demographics in our graduate program. But I should say that our great fortune was that we had Chilean students. That is to say, it was just a matter of circumstance in some sense. Things were difficult in Chile, as I'm sure you knew during that period when Pinochet was in there. And because of that reason, several Chilean students began to come up to Iowa because they had a connection in Juan Antonio Gatica, who was actually on our faculty and who went down and, he had gotten his PhD here, he had gone down to Chile, and so he was able to come up, and several students came with him. Over that period of time, from roughly maybe 1973 or 1974 up until 1992 or 1993, when the government went back to being a democracy, during that time, the University of Iowa Math Department actually graduated 25 PhDs from Chilean nationals, which is more than even Santiago has ever produced. So we all of a sudden had this remarkable experience of being in a department where Spanish was spoken. Very few of us knew Spanish. I was raised in housing projects in New York, but sadly, and this is the point I guess I'm making, we were taught that we should learn French because that was how we got out of the projects, and we went up, and here we were with Puerto Ricans right next door to us, and we never thought to speak with them, and we never could speak with them. And so it was ironic to me that here I was in the middle of Iowa, which is indeed a wonderful place, Iowa City, and here we were with an influx of folks from Chile, and we were learning to speak Spanish, and the whole department changed. So I think it was natural for us, we were lonely in a sense when they stopped coming, and I think it was natural for us to extend that same courtesy to our American minority students, and the numbers are roughly the same now. We've had 25 PhDs among underrepresented minority US citizens, and our population at the department is about 20% minority. So that's been a wonderful thing for us, and it's been a blessing to have had the people from Chile and to have the second and third generation connections now.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And your efforts didn't really stay within the math department. I mean, as I understand it, you have been quite a vocal proponent with, throughout the university that departments need to really be looking beyond what might be considered the most, what should I say, the most easily seen group of potential students to look for new.
It's an interesting thing. I think about when my friends from Chile first came here and what they might have thought, because when we go to Chile, we learn many things, and when international students come to Iowa, we learn much from them. But I wonder if we think what they see when they come here. And I know from my colleagues that after all, they came to a department where every graduate student, they were all graduate students, every graduate student who was American was white, was of European descent. There wasn't a single minority student there. And yet when they went to high school, our friend Roberto Johnson, his children, and I don't mean this in any way to be amusing, on the contrary, if you go down to Chile now and you meet Roberto Johnson's children, they speak like African Americans because their first friends in high school at West High were black students. And so they became close with them. So you wonder what message we give to our Chinese students, to people from Chile, people of color, all of them, who first have an impression of our university system that it's white when we have a country that is no longer white. That troubles us. And now I think, and you mentioned Oscar Vega, who came up from Chile and who's a friend of Marcela, and Oscar came to a department that was very different. Oscar came in 1995 or something like that?
2001, yeah. He was my peer. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, he was in 2001. He came in 2001.
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah.
Okay, so by 2001, our department was 10% minority. And Oscar was one of the movers and shakers in our minority program as a graduate student. And now he's at Fresno State, and I run a program nationally that attempts to do this throughout the country, called the National Alliance for Doctoral Study in the Mathematical Sciences. And Oscar is a big part of that now at Fresno State. So what I mean is, I like to think that Oscar saw something that we can be a little bit more proud of when he came here than our folks who came earlier. And I hope that we can extend that to the rest of our university so that when Chinese people come, and we have more and more, they look at us and they wonder, why are we all white at the university when our towns are more and more mixed, when our university, when our college is more, our state is more and more mixed, our country, and we have an African-American president who, by the way, again, the world saw as a sea change in America. 80% popularity throughout the whole world. I mean, so we have to ask ourselves at Iowa, do we really want to do international programs without becoming diverse with our own population?
Is diversity an issue in Chile? Do you have, whether either racial diversity or income level diversity, access to higher education, is this an issue that you deal with in Chile as well?
Yeah, well, actually, yes. Yeah. Maybe the answer is coming with the student movement. Or no?
Student movement, yeah. Right now, so you know, there's a big student movement demanding free education because they're seeing that they're getting access to education, but they have a large debt to pay after. Maybe you'll see some of that going on in the U.S. in a couple years from now. You know, this almost a subprime type of thing going, that you're not getting enough out of your education and the jobs that you're getting. In Chile, it's inequality is almost, it's more unequal than the U.S. The U.S. has got terrible inequality, we've come to learn recently. But we have a classist thing going on in Chile. Yeah. So the moment that somebody opens their mouth, you know where they're from. And the moment, and where he could get to, which is really the most unfortunate thing. And then most of our leaders come from 5 or 6 different schools. Schools, just, you know, not even like, just, you know, our leaders are just from very limited schools and neighborhoods. So there's a classist issue. So we don't have a race issue, maybe a little bit. We have different tones of brown, right? But it's differently, but it's definitely a classist issue. And that's really terrible because my friends would see me talking to people from other places in Chile, and we'd have 2 questions. What school do you go to? Where do you live? And that defined almost everything about you. And that's not good, you know, because that means that you're limited and that you know you're going to be limited. Now, I work with this guy, this presidential candidate that he didn't win the primary, but he's great, Andrés Velasco. He's actually a U.S. trained guy. He lived most of his life in the U.S., and he really believes in meritocracy. And he wants, and so the new thing now, all the presidential candidates are saying is like, you know, we hate this thing that we have this political party that's gonna choose everything, and you guys, you could only get up to here. You know, my family itself, I have an uncle, he's a great guy, but he doesn't have the family last names to climb higher in the positions of power, and where he's. So that's really what we have to overcome. It's not a race thing, but it's a class thing. And now we have incoming racial potential tensions with immigration from Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador. That's causing some tension that's going to come in the future. But I think we should be able to cherish this diversity and not try to stop it.
Well, actually, I met the other way to learn to teach in Chile. I studied with different people, different culture, and everybody can go to the same place. So the relation between the people made the life different. After Pinochet happened, what we have now, we try to change this to the other way around. But I remember in my university, I met people with a different class of different level of education. So when you live with them, everybody can change, and everybody knows this guy is good, so I can do something for him as I want. So they met people different. Yeah. They don't put a wall in between them because they know they are different people. They look different. They have different clothes, but this guy is good. So I need them to do something, and the other way around also. So I remember that this kind of education we have, but now this, as he said, is quite different, and is a problem because there are tension between in the population. You know, there are places where they hate to the other guy. Yeah. We was calling. Remember when we were coming here? It's like, why some people do that? For instance, the car just put some.
Scrape the car. Yeah.
Because. Yeah. So they say why? Yeah. The reason is that what we're telling now. Yeah. There are partition like mathematics. Sorry, it's a mathematic word. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that we must change this, and that we are working this.
So my father, he teaches. So he actually was a scientist in the biomathematics sector, but all of a sudden you started seeing that the educational system was a little bit fractured. So he switched over and transformed into teaching the teachers, right? Grade school, high school. And it's a very good transformation because you saw that really the people that were training them weren't that good. But the other thing that my dad has done, and my universities also, is that we actually teach first generation people all the time, right? I mean, of students that are going to college. Their parents didn't go to college, and that's a really good thing. For example, I remember that one of my colleagues was telling me she had a emergency visit. Paramedics went to her house, and then so they're talking to the person, the paramedic. The paramedic guy's like, "Well, what do you do?" "Oh, I teach at UNAB." "Okay, and oh, my son goes to UNAB, and he's in Iowa now." And he's gonna study in the U.S. And so then that's the thing that you could do. So this guy, his parent, because you don't need to be a college degree to be a paramedic in Chile. The guy, is able to jump, and you could make a big jump in his education and his economic status. Whereas the big universities, the traditional universities, Catholic University, Universidad de Chile, the guys, already have their future secured. They went to the greatest schools. It's like Harvard here. They have no. And I was even listening to this professor the other day saying despair that these guys don't do any innovation. The guys that should be doing most innovation are the guys that already have their future secured, right? But these guys are just hurried to graduate and make money. Yeah. Whereas the difference that you can make in a university like University of Iowa, as we've seen, as the Universidad Católica Paraíso, is that you could really make that shift from the first generation to second generation. Hopefully down the line, these guys are going to be able to reach the goals. And as long as we keep the system equal, and then we don't have these ghettos of power and classism, we'll be able to really reach development. Because there's no country in the world that has ever reached development with the levels of inequality that Chile has up to now.
Yeah. Well, so Phil, what do you see around the country? Do you see this as something that many universities are concerned about, trying to find ways to among their faculty and then certainly among the students that they're recruiting and bringing in, make it look more like the world?
Yeah, I think it's not going to come, although the university here is very supportive, don't get me wrong, but the impetus for that is not going to come from the universities because the universities have a lot of different priorities that they have to balance. The impetus in our case has come from the faculty. We, in our department, it's sprung up, as I mentioned, and the department has won this award from, not from Obama, but from President Bush, the presidential award, and we've gotten attention from our mathematical society. So what we've learned, the lesson we've learned, and we're learning it now in physics as well, is that if we're going to change the culture, we need to change it in our discipline. It's a subtle point, but what we do at the program that I run, it involves 250 undergraduate faculty around the country and 26 PhD granting institutions. You mentioned Washington University, the math department there is one of our groups. So those faculty are interested in making these changes because it makes sense to them professionally. And also because it makes sense to them as Americans. They've lived the same life that I have, and they remember the March on Washington, and they remember Dr. King, and they get to be 60 years old, and they start thinking to themselves, I hate to think of myself retiring in a department that's all Northern European. And so they begin to think to themselves, maybe we can change this, and if you give them the model of our wonderful department, they start to think that they can do it too. So I think that it's never going to be, as you all said, and it's no criticism, those places where power is concentrated. I would put it a little bit more gently than you would, actually. The places where power is concentrated by their job is to be stable. That's what they do for a living. And we need them in many ways to keep the stability of those institutions. And universities are like that. And I think the place where the change comes is from the people in those institutions, in our case, the faculty. And we're seeing this change now in Iowa, and I should add that the University of Iowa and Iowa City, as these gentlemen will tell you, is one of the best places in the world to do this sort of thing, certainly in our country. People here are very open-minded, very moderate in their goals in life. They're not particularly greedy, and they're very open. One of the things about Iowa is nobody here thinks that they're in the center of the world. And so they're very open to learn about other sorts of people. I can't think of a better place to live. My wife and I have just been as happy as we can be here. So I think it has to come from the faculty. And I just say briefly, in Iowa City, it has to come from the citizens of Iowa City as we begin to change demographically as well.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a wonderful conversation. Philip Kutzko, Marcelo Mena-Carrasco, and Jaime Mena, thank you so much. This has been the fourth part of our four-part series on sustainability. I hope you've been able to see each of the episodes, and if not, you can find them all online. Our next program, which you can see live in this room on December 6th, is on teaching innovation, and we hope you'll be with us for that. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I'm Joan Kjaer. Good night.